I used to think let's take a break was the grown-up way to say we're in trouble, but I still want to look like the good guy. Turns out it's just the polite door frame for an exit someone already walked through. Her name was Jenna. 29, graphic designer, the type who kept plants alive and shoes pristine. I'm 34. I used to run logistics for a regional distributor routing trucks, balancing temperamental inventory systems, living by spreadsheets and weather apps. We met because a vendor sent the wrong pallets to my dock and she showed up with mock-ups for the packaging they were supposed to go in. She argued with me about hex codes, I argued with her about lead times, and 2 weeks later we were splitting a pizza and telling the kind of childhood stories you only tell when you like the way somebody listens. By the time I bought the ring, I had learned everything about her coffee order and nothing about her capacity for avoidance. She'd say, I'm heading to spin, and come back glowing, toss her hair into a clip, sit cross-legged on the couch, and ask me to read the captions she wrote for a client's Instagram. When I started staying late at the warehouse to bank overtime, quietly stacking a down payment, quietly hunting for the house with the gum tree out front she always pointed at on Sunday drives, she stopped asking me to taste East's captions. You're always tired, she said. You're somewhere else. I told myself the surprise would fix the distance. It's funny, the stories we marry inside our heads. The break conversation happened on a Wednesday, which I hated the second it left her mouth because Wednesdays are for leftovers and laundry and keeping a life running, not detonating it. She was still in her gym clothes. I was still in my steel-toe boots. She picked at the label on her water bottle and said, I think we need space. There's a guy at work I connect with. I haven't done anything. I want to be honest. I don't remember what I said right after that. I remember the hum of the refrigerator and the very specific thought that if you filmed my face and slowed it down, you could watch a person turn into a statue. My mouth eventually made words. So this isn't about space, I said, voice too calm. This is about a door you want to try while I stand on the porch and pretend this is ventilation. She cried, which I used to experience as proof of sincerity and now experience as proof of a functioning nervous system. She said it wasn't like that. She said she needed to find herself. She said the new guy's name once, Evan, and then stopped herself like she'd set something inappropriate on the table. I didn't beg. This surprises people when I tell the story. I loved her. I also loved not being lied to in small words. I slept on the couch. I stared at the ceiling until the ceiling stared back. In the morning, I made coffee, poured it down the sink untouched, opened the ring box I hadn't shown anyone, and felt nothing but a dull, queen ache. Then I did the first adult thing I'd done in months. I made a list of moves, not feelings. Step 1. Call my boss. There was a transfer open in the Asheville branch, a place I'd filed under someday because I like mountains and breakfast food. I can be there in 3 weeks, I said. My boss was quiet. You've been solid for 6 years, he said. You sure? I said I was. He said he'd push it through. Step 2, tell Jenna I was taking the space she requested seriously. She said, wait, you're leaving? I said, you asked for a break. I'm not going to hover in the same zip code while you explore your curiosity. She said she didn't think I'd actually go. I said that was half our problem, wasn't it? Step 3, tell as few people as possible. People who love you will accidentally turn your life into a group project and, God help them, they will use the word closure, like there's a form you forgot to sign. I texted 3 friends, my sister, and my landlord. On my way out of town 2 weeks later, I stopped at the river because we once promised each other we'd always live near water. I threw a flat rock, watched it skip twice, sink, and decided that counted as symbolism if I wanted it to. Then I set my phone to airplane mode and drove 8 hours with a duffel bag, a toolbox, a cooler, and a life that fit in a hatchback. The sublet smelled like lemon cleaner and drywall, dust, and hope. 1 bedroom, slanted ceiling, a window that looked out on a sycamore whose bark peeled like old paint. I put my mattress on the floor, leaned a mirror against the wall, ate a grocery store rotisserie chicken with my hands, and slept for 11 hours with no dreams. The first morning, I woke up to birds that sounded like squeaky wheels and made coffee in a pot that belonged to a man named Caleb whose framed prints still hung over the couch. He was in Peru for 2 months. The note he left said, help yourself to anything except the cast iron my grandmother will know. I don't believe in starting over, not really. You bring your furniture, you bring your bad habits, but you can turn on a different lamp, you can put the couch on a new wall and see what your living room becomes. I bought a bike from a guy on Facebook Marketplace who insisted I take his old helmet because concussions are expensive. I joined a co-op gym with chalk in the air and a whiteboard of names, no neon lighting, no curated playlists. I learned where the cheap eggs were and which barista drew ferns on lattes and still meant the compliment when she said, nice shirt. I found a therapist, a woman whose office smelled like mint gum and dirt after rain, who did not do that earnest head tilt. We'll work on boundaries, she said, like you might work on your backhand. At work, I kept my head down and then up and then down again. The Asheville branch ran like a family business that accidentally got big. The manager, a man named Cole who wore boots that looked like they'd worked, wanted me to clean up our mess. I did what I always do, printed the mess, spread it on a conference table, circled it with a pen, and asked the 2 questions that make you useful in logistics. What's the real problem? What can we fix today? The warehouse crew taught me their names on day 2 and their jokes on day 10 and offered me a spot on the Tuesday bowling team on day 15. I said yes and learned I throw like a man who is patient but ultimately disappointed. Jenna texted a week after I landed. Unknown number because I'd blocked the one I knew. I don't know if this is still your phone, the message read. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. I never cheated. I just got scared. I typed, deleted, typed, deleted. Then I copied something my therapist had me practice out loud until it didn't shake. I'm not available for this conversation. Please don't contact me again. I stared at the period at the end of the sentence like it was a finish line. Then I hit send and threw the phone on the bed like it might explode. It didn't. If anything, the room felt quieter. I didn't date because dating right then would have been an audition I didn't even know I was holding. Instead, I joined a pickup soccer game that convened on a field near the river where half the men were 20 and never got tired and the other half were 30-something dads who wore orthopedic inserts. I belonged to the second group and could still cross the ball on a line. After one game, a guy with a mustache that probably had its own Instagram said, "We're grabbing tacos, you in?" I said yes. Saying yes became a rule I followed, within reason. The yeses added up: tacos, trivia nights, a volunteer shift at the animal shelter where I learned to wrap a cat like a burrito for nail trims. On Sundays, a neighbor named Ms. Alvarez knocked on my door and handed me a paper plate with something that steamed and said, "You need to eat real food, return the plate." On Tuesdays, I carried the plate back and she said, "Keep the plate," and we started leaving each other fruit on our doorsteps like two birds who had learned a trick. Work liked me. More accurately, work liked results, and I speak that language. I built a better check-in process for returns, taught the Tuesday crew why scanners fail when you hold them like hairdryers, quietly convinced Cole that the late truck wasn't a driver problem but a route problem. One afternoon, the regional VP came through, clapped my shoulder, and asked if I would consider taking over operations when the current lead retired in 6 months. I said, "Can we circle back? Because I'm a professional." Then I went home and stood very still because I realized I was building a future that didn't require anyone else's permission. The ring lived in a sock at the back of a drawer for 2 months. Then one Saturday morning, I took it to a jeweler with gentle hands and said, "I need to return this to the world." He looked at me like a veterinarian looks at a person surrendering a very old dog, with respect for both parties. He paid me a number that didn't insult me, and I walked out lighter by an amount of metal and an amount of story that weighed the same. Jenna didn't stop. 2 weeks after the boundary text, my sister sent a screenshot. She reached out to me, Meg wrote. "I didn't respond, just telling you so you don't get ambushed at Thanksgiving." My buddy Seth forwarded an Instagram post of Jenna and some man at a lake. "I guess this is the guy," he wrote, "because people who love you will still sometimes hand you sharp objects without meaning to." I set my phone face down and went for a run. I discovered you can run in a city like this until you forget that your phone exists, which is to say until you remember you do. At 3 months, I had a routine. Mornings were coffee and emails, lunch was a sandwich at my desk or beans and rice at a picnic table out back. Evenings were either the gym or a walk where the hills reminded me what legs are for. I bought a used dresser from a thrift store that sold records and grilled cheese. I sanded it on the patio and stained it to look like something my grandfather would have put his hat on. I manufactured small rituals: Sunday pancakes, Wednesday laundry, the Friday game where I picked a bar I hadn't been to and sat with a book for an hour and tried to make eye contact with nobody. "You look different," Meg said on FaceTime. "Better. Like someone turned you upright." I did a stupid thing once. I Googled Jenna, like you touch a tooth, you know will hurt. I saw a photo of her at a charity 5K with a bib pinned crooked, saw comments from friends I also used to count as mine, saw nothing that changed any facts. I closed the browser and made a rule not to do that again. Mostly I kept it. I did not become a new man. I became the same man with less noise. In therapy, I said out loud the things I had only admitted at 2 a.m. in my old apartment. That part of me liked being the one who fixed, who planned, who quietly earned while someone else looked like the artist. That part of me wanted credit for sacrifices I'd chosen alone. That I had offered Jenna a surprise instead of coordination because I was afraid to ask for what I wanted and hear no and call it data instead of rejection. "Good," my therapist said when I flinched. "Honest is the only material that holds." 5 months in, Cole asked again about the ops job. This time I said yes. We shook hands and he said, "You're steady. That's rare." I took the long way home. The late sun turned the river into a sheet of hammered metal. A band was playing on the boardwalk. A kid on a scooter almost took me out and then turned, breathless, and said, "Sorry, sir," and I laughed like a person whose life had room for breath. The apartment changed as my insides did. I put up my own photos instead of living with Caleb's. I bought a rug that tied the room together in a way I did not know a rug could. Ms. Alvarez taught me how to make arroz con palo that didn't taste like a cry for help. I started a notebook for things I wanted: small, specific, mine. Not a house, not a ring. A set of mixing bowls that stacked properly. A lamp that made a circle of light like a promise. The feeling of going to sleep on clean sheets every Sunday because I was a man who did his laundry and not a man drowning in it. When I finally went on a date, it surprised me. Her name was Lila. We met because I spilled coffee on my shirt at the farmer's market and she said, "That's a strong look," in a way that made me laugh at myself. She was a physical therapist, which meant she used her hands like instruments and listened like a person tuning them. We ate tacos on a curb and talked about boring things that felt like a luxury: which parks had the best shade, how to keep basil alive, whether the city should replace the parking lot behind the laundromat with housing. When she asked about my move, I told the edited truth. I needed air, I said. This place has a lot of it. She nodded like she'd been at the meeting where that decision got approved. I didn't bring up Jenna, and Lila didn't ask because we were two people trying a thing that didn't need ghosts to start. We went out 3 times. On the fourth, I canceled because work ran late, and she said, "No worries, let me know what's good for you," which is a sentence that should be more common than it is. I did not transfer my hopes onto her like a debt. I didn't need to. Jenna escalated the way people do when you don't give them a reaction that sustains them. A private number called me 6 times in one afternoon. When I finally answered because I thought it might be a driver stuck on the interstate, her voice came through, bright and thin. "I heard you moved," she said. "I heard you got a promotion." I felt my heart do the thing an animal does when it hears a sound at the edge of the woods. "Please don't call this number again," I said. "I wish you well. That's all I have." I hung up, counted to 60, then placed a block with my carrier because boundaries work better when you build them out of materials other people can't move. 2 days later, my sister texted, "Heads up, she asked me for your address." I told her I didn't have it. My sister absolutely had it. I sent a heart and the words, "Thank you," and went to the hardware store for a deadbolt because some security is psychological and some is a piece of metal correctly installed. When you're healing, people think they are allowed to nominate themselves for roles. A mutual friend from the before times messaged me on Facebook with a paragraph about forgiveness and how staying angry turns you into the villain in your own life. I typed, "I'm not angry, I'm busy." Then I deleted that because I don't owe anyone an essay on my emotional hygiene. I sent a thumbs droop emoji and then hit unfriend and walked to the gym. The ops job cracked my days open in a way that felt like waking. Suddenly, I was at the table where budgets got discussed and not just mopped up after. I instituted a daily stand-up that didn't feel like punishment. I called the 2 most difficult drivers first thing every morning and asked what they needed before they told me why something couldn't be done. On Fridays, I walked the floor with a clipboard and wrote down what people complained about in the break room, then fixed one item a week. Paper towels that didn't tear right, a microwave that didn't rotate, a fan that didn't aim. It felt like cheating, how grateful everyone was for being seen. "Where did you come from?" one of the forklift guys asked, half joking. "A worse version of here," I said. "I'm trying to make sure we don't become it." I went home that night, cooked pasta, ate it standing up, and realized I had not once thought about who Jenna was eating with. Progress is not dramatic, it's a Tuesday where your brain does a different thing. If this sounds like everything got easy, it didn't. There were nights when the quiet in the apartment felt like a verdict. There were Saturdays when everyone had plans and I refused to call old numbers and then judge myself for feeling sorry. There was a morning when I found one of Jenna's bobby pins in the bottom of a shaving kit, because of course I moved a shaving kit across state lines with a bobby pin in it, and I sat on the edge of the tub and laughed until I covered my face and breathed like I was running. And then I threw the pin away and told myself I was no longer a museum. The first real test of this new person I was practicing came on a Thursday. We hosted a small industry meetup at the warehouse. Vendors, a food truck, a tour of the floor so people would stop thinking product moved by magic. I did the tour because Cole hates microphones and I'm weirdly good at telling a story with a forklift humming in the background. Someone took photos. The next day, our company posted them. I looked competent, which is to say I looked like myself. I didn't think of it again until my DMs lit up with a message request from a name I didn't recognize. I opened it because curiosity is a muscle that will never atrophy in me. The profile had 2 photos of mountains and a bio that said, "Be kind." The message said, "Hey, this is going to seem strange. I'm a friend of Jenna's. She's been not okay. Maybe you could talk to her?" I stared at the screen the way you stare at a cat that you suspect opened a door. Then I replied with the sentence that had become my life preserver, "I'm not available for this conversation." I hit send and then blocked, not because I'm cruel, but because I am finally responsible for the one life I have. Mila asked me once, on a walk past a mural of a fox wearing headphones, "Do you miss her?" "I miss who I thought we were," I said, which sounded like something from a poster until I kept talking. "I miss how easy it was to believe effort could buy me immunity from being left. I miss knowing where the scissors are in the junk drawer. I miss being a +1 to nice weddings where the chicken is dry and you slow a dance anyway." "That's honest," she said. "Honest is heavy," I said. "I'm stronger than I was." In August, my landlord texted to say Caleb was coming back and wanted his apartment. "I've got a place you might like," she added. 1 bedroom with actual closets, sunlight like a religion. I went to see it. The floors were old wood, the windows tall, the kitchen small enough that nothing was ever out of reach. I signed the lease and moved my things in the back of 2 friends' pickups. Ms. Alvarez cried and said, "You will still come by." I promised I would. I bought the mixing bowls, the lamp, a plant I have not yet killed. The first night in the new place, I ate a grilled cheese on the floor and put my feet on the opposite wall because I could. The city hummed in a different key outside. Somewhere, a neighbor played a trumpet, badly, with commitment. I felt like a man who had not outrun his past so much as outgrown it, like a shirt he didn't notice was tight until he stopped holding his breath. The next morning, on my way out, a flyer was taped to the front door of the building. An arts walk. Saturday, downtown, live music, vendors, come find your people. I laughed because marketers are not subtle, and also because maybe, just maybe, my people could be found in places that didn't require anyone else's approval. I didn't think about the flyer again until Saturday evening when I was 3 blocks from the gallery with the dog-friendly sign and I heard a laugh I knew. If you'd asked me before that moment whether I'd recognize it, I would have said no. I would have said people are collections of details that blur with time, that memory is a liar, that you cannot pull a single sound out of the noise of a city and name it. I was wrong. The laugh turned my head before my brain got there. I saw a shoulder first, a profile. The particular way she stood, weight on the left hip, a hand curled around a paper cup. A man leaned in, said something, made a shape with his hands like he was telling a story about the size of a fish. She smiled, and the smile was the one that used to make me think we would name a dog together. I didn't freeze. I didn't bolt. My heart did its animal thing and then settled. I felt not nothing, but something crisp. Information. The world describing itself to me. This is the person you used to arrange your life around. This is the street you live on now. That is a coffee you are free not to drink. My phone buzzed. A text from Meg. Weird question. Did you know Jenna moved to Asheville? I stared at the screen, then at the coffee cup across the street, then back at the screen. I tucked the phone back in my pocket without replying and looked up again. She had turned. She had seen me. In the half second before anything else, I saw something I had never seen on her face, surprise with no strategy attached. Then she took a step forward and opened her mouth. I breathed in once, slow. Boundaries, my therapist had said, are not walls you build to keep the world out. They are fences with gates you decide when to unlock. I stood there, hand on my own gate, surprised to find I was the one holding the key. She said my name like it was still hers to use. David? I nodded once, calm, steady. I didn't step closer. I didn't fill the silence with anything to make it easier for her. That was the old me, the fixer, the explainer, the man who thought if he worked hard enough he could make love bulletproof. He tried to smile. It looked borrowed. I can't believe you're here. I moved for work, my uncle's firm. She trailed off when she saw my expression. I didn't give her a reaction. I had learned reactions are currency, and I wasn't spending any more of mine on her. How have you been? She asked. That was when I realized something. She was still trying to frame the story, still trying to pretend she had a role in my present tense, but she didn't, not anymore. I'm good, I said simply. Really good. And it was the truth. My job was solid. I had friends who wanted me around for no other reason than the company. I had routines that made my days mine. I had a version of myself that wasn't tied to whether or not Jenna woke up liking me that morning. She blinked like she didn't expect that answer. Good, I'm glad. Then quieter, I've thought about you, about us, about everything. I didn't ask what she meant. I didn't need her nostalgia or her guilt. She was offering me crumbs from a table I'd already walked away from. Look, she said, shifting her weight like she was nervous. I know I messed up. I know I hurt you. I hope maybe we could talk, start fresh, maybe grab a coffee. For a moment, I saw the old habit rise in me. The urge to comfort, to soften, to leave a door cracked open because once upon a time she was my home. But then I felt the difference in me. The weight in my chest was gone. The silence around her words didn't ache anymore. I don't think so, I said. My voice was level, not cruel. That chapter's closed. She looked stricken, like she'd been sure I would give her something, anger, longing, maybe even forgiveness. But I wasn't here for her anymore. I was here for me. You really don't hate me? She asked, almost desperate. I shook my head. No, I don't hate you. I just don't need you in my life. Her eyes shimmered, and for the first time, I didn't feel pulled under by it. I just felt distance, a clean, firm line that belonged to me. She tried again. We could just talk, for closure maybe? I already have closure, I said, and then I stepped aside, literally and figuratively, to let her pass on the sidewalk. She stood frozen for a second, then walked by, her perfume brushing the air like a memory that no longer had claws. I didn't turn to watch her go. I kept walking toward the art show, toward music, toward strangers who might someday become friends, toward the life I had built. My phone buzzed again in my pocket, my sister sending another text, but I didn't even check it right away. I was too busy breathing the kind of air you only get after a storm clears. That night, I sat in my apartment with the window open. The city hummed, a trumpet played badly down the block, and I felt still. For the first time in years, I wasn't replaying arguments or wondering what I could have done differently. I wasn't waiting for her to hand me the ending. I'd written my own. Jenna was just a face in a crowd now, a closed door on a street I no longer lived on, and me, I was exactly where I was supposed to be. So tell me, if you were in my place, would you have stopped to hear her out? Or would you, like me, have walked on and kept your new life intact? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, and subscribe for more stories of betrayal, healing, and moving forward.